Hello, everyone, and welcome into the Monday Morning Quarterback Podcast, MMQB Podcast. It is Matt Verderame here with you on November 21st as we record this on a Thursday morning. I am with the esteemed, the one and only Gilberto Manzano, as always. Sir, what's going on? How you doing? You ready for Week 12?
Yeah, I'm doing well. We're here in week 12, and I gotta say, Matt, the schedule's a little funky this week because you're starting with Steelers Browns, and you keep scrolling down. It's like, really? Do you want to see Texans Titans, Patriots Dolphins? Then you get to the bottom. It's actually not that bad. 49ers Packers, Cardinals Seahawks, Ravens Chargers, Eagles Rams. But those first games there are pretty bad. But I guess that's the downside of having 6 teams on a bye, right?
Yep, so as you mentioned, and you said it, like Atlanta, Buffalo, Cincinnati, New Orleans, the Jets, and Jacksonville are on a bye. Now, we can all be thankful those last 3 teams are on a bye, but Atlanta, Buffalo, and Cincinnati sitting on a bye, maybe the Bengals throw them in that first group. Look, you said it. The 1 o'clock slate is, it's not great. You're not going to be telling your kids about it. So for anyone who hasn't looked at it, here's what we got here. Minnesota at Chicago, Detroit at Indianapolis, New England at Miami, Tampa Bay at the Giants, Dallas at Washington, Kansas City at Carolina, Tennessee at Houston. I mean, maybe Minnesota at Chicago is interesting. Maybe Detroit at Indianapolis is somewhat interesting. The rest of those games, woof. I mean, Houston should roll. The Chiefs should roll. Washington should roll. Tampa should roll. Miami should roll. I mean, not a lot. But then, as you mentioned, in the late slate, we are stuck with Denver, who's fine, but against the Raiders, who are not. But then we do have San Francisco, Green Bay, Arizona, and Seattle. And then the Sunday night game is Philly at LA, the Rams. And then on Monday is Baltimore at the Chargers. So SoFi, 2 games in 2 days. You going either one of those games? Both games?
No, just the Monday night, the Harbaugh Bowl, Jim and John, Ravens, Chargers.
Let's start there. What the hell? I refuse to talk about those 1 o'clock games. It's a disgrace.
I don't blame you.
I'll let Albert and Connor handle that. God bless them. Baltimore is a very confounding team. They are 7-4. They have been talked about at times like they are a Super Bowl favorite. And they have been talked about at times as a team that, like, we've seen the movie, and I've certainly been in the latter camp. I've said this a million times. They went to Pittsburgh. They did not give up a touchdown, and they lost. They had 3 turnovers. They missed 2 field goals. Look, let's start here. Let's start with the overarching picture. By the way, they're a half game behind the Chargers right now in the playoff picture.
Yeah.
So let's start here. Let's go here. Are the Ravens a top-tier Super Bowl contender in your mind?
Man, it's a tough one, but I'm going to say no, just because it doesn't feel like a typical John Harbaugh team. Like, there's a lot of issues defensively. There's a lot of issues on special teams. Yeah, they could get hot in a hurry. They're an offensive force there. I get that. But, to get, 14 points last week or 16 points last week, you would think they'll get a little more. And when you're facing Russell Wilson, who can't get anything going and throws a killer interception, like, there's many opportunities there for the offense to do something, and they didn't. And the other thing too, Matt, like, I get it. They beat down the Buccaneers. They rolled against the Broncos, but you can't lose to the Raiders and you can't lose to the Browns. Like, you can have one excuse game. Okay, yeah, that was a bad day, but then you have 2. And then anytime you play a good defense like the Chiefs in opening night, and the Raiders to an extent were kind of a good defense in week 2 after it fell apart. But when it comes to playing a physical team, they don't really hit back, and that's not a John Harbaugh team. So with all that in mind, I'm going to say no. They're going to be very tough out. They kind of feel like the Bengals, right? Like, all right, it's going to be a tough week here. We got to score some points here to contain Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, and Zay Flowers, Isaiah Likely. But even trying to find those names, like Isaiah Likely and Zay Flowers are not T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. So, like,
correct.
Even from that point, it's like, are they really a force? Are they really kind of a scary opponent? So I'm just going to say a very good team, but they're on that second tier where, like, maybe if they get rolling, they can figure it out, but they're not a contender enough to me.
I think the Isaiah Likely thing, and I don't mean this to sound like the slam, it's probably going to sound like Isaiah Likely's fine. Why does everyone treat Isaiah Likely like he's a great player? I don't understand. Like, Zay Flowers, terrific player. Yeah. 727 yards, right? Like, great player. Rashad Bateman, to his credit this year, has had a really nice year. 531 yards, a quality player. Isaiah Likely had 111 yards against Kansas City. Here are the yardage totals he's had since then. And I'm not excluding any games. 26, 4, 26, 13, 27, 17, 47, 0, 75. That the 75, which was mostly on 142-yard reception, which fine, whatever, fair enough. That is it. He has done nothing outside of that Pittsburgh game since opening day. Nothing. Mark Andrews has more yardage than Isaiah Likely does. Like, it's just weird. Like, oh yeah, well, Isaiah Likely, he's on the team. I mean, okay, like he's fine. I'm not saying he's not a good player, but like I'm not like terrified of guarding him either. I think everybody saw that Week 1 game, and went crazy. That is by a mile the high water mark of Isaiah Likely's career. Like that, it's almost ironically actually in the same stadium, it's the same team, obviously. It's like when Gabe Davis went off for 200 yards and 4 touchdowns in that playoff game.
Yeah,
and also in the game that team lost, and then everybody was like, "Oh my God, Gabe Davis!" And it's like, it's Gabe Davis. Like, all right, I don't know. Like, he's Gabe Davis. Look, the Ravens. I'm with you. I don't think the Ravens are Super Bowl contenders on the top tier anyway. And here's why. Like, you mentioned the defense. They have given up 312 more air yards than anyone else in football. Okay, it's not close. They've given up more passing yards per game than anyone in football. Their sack numbers are really good. They're top 3, but their pressure rate is bottom half of the league. They give up a ton of yards per completion, 7th worst in the NFL. They simply look. They have some good points. They have the most quarterback hits. They're 11th most tackles for loss. So like they do have a little boomer bust quality to them, and they're great against the run. But their pass defense is an atrocity, like on a level that can just absolutely end your season. And then you mentioned the kicking, which you look at the Ravens year in and year out, right? And it's Justin Tucker. So you're like, oh, they're no problem. They're 29th in the league in field goal percentage this year. They can't hit field goal. Tucker is 72.7%. The only teams that are worse are the Jets, Browns, and Bengals. Somehow the Ravens are second best in their own division, but they're 29th in the league. Like they can't kick a field goal. And if Tucker hits one of those field goals against Pittsburgh, they win. Look, I think this is a really important game for them because if they lose this game, like look, they're going to make the playoffs and everything. They could very well find themselves 2.5 games back of Pittsburgh in the AFC North. Steelers play on Thursday night against the Browns. And we could be sitting here going, man, like they're a game and a half now with the breaker going the other way behind the Chargers. And their schedule doesn't get easier. Like after the Chargers, they have a short week. They play the Eagles. Then they have a bye. They get the Giants out of it. Okay. Then it's Pittsburgh. And then 4 days later, it's at Houston. So it's not like Baltimore is just going to coast into the playoffs here and feel great about it. Like they got to start playing better. On the flip side, other Harbaugh, Jim, they're 7-3. Very weird game against Cincinnati, but they won it. I personally see them as a team that knows who they are. They have an identity. They want to play defense. They want to run the ball. Herbert's going to make 2 or 3 plays a game. I think they're limited with their talent, but I think that they're well coached and they know who they are. Do you think that they are a team that can win more than one playoff game? I think their ceiling is like the divisional round. Do you think they're more than that?
You know what? I'm going to say just one playoff game. And if they get that 5 seed, you want to get the 5 seed. It could be Houston or Indianapolis, and then you kind of guarantee yourself a win there. But after that, you have to either face Buffalo Bills or Kansas City Chiefs. They're not really there at that point. And it was an impressive victory. I'm going to give them that. But, people have given me crap for saying, well, like, is it really that impressive? The Bengals are 4-7. At some point, we got to start making excuses. They're a good offensive force there. They got Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, but they're still 4-7. They still lost to the Patriots. So it was a nice win. You probably shouldn't have let it get close when it was 27-6 there.
Yeah.
Allowing 3 touchdowns so quickly. So to me, it feels like they're a team still trying to figure it out. Like those ghosts from the past are still lingering. They're trying to figure out how to win close games. That was a step in the right direction. That was great. They almost had an epic collapse there. The Jacksonville playoff game came to mind, but they got the game-winning drive with Ladd McConkey, J.K. Dobbins. But yeah, I think you said it, Matt, that the talent there could be a little limited. They're inexperienced. They're still trying to figure out how to play or even how to utilize Justin Herbert. And Justin Herbert, one thing that was a little annoying last week, they kept saying this is Joe Burrow against the Chargers, stud defense. Well, they also have a good quarterback there, so he made some plays there.
Yep.
And I think having that kind of maybe an overall roster, for me, I like them to win that playoff game. But they don't have, like, even the Steelers are limited. Obviously, when you see Russell Wilson doing what he did last week, they're very limited. But they don't have that experience. That defense has been there. They don't have Mike Tomlin. They don't have that issue with closing out games. They know how to play physical football. They're still learning that. But I'm curious to see how they do when it gets cold. Like this Jim Harbaugh method. You're an LA SoCal team that likes to play in the sunny weather. You're at SoFi Stadium. Maybe they're actually a physical team. I want to see that because they seem more physical than the Ravens to me, but we'll find out on Monday. That's the beauty of it. Like I kind of want to do a pecking order for the AFC, Matt. That's kind of Orr's thing, the power rankings. And part of me is like the Ravens or Chargers are really close, or am I buying into too much one game into that Bengals game? So we'll find out Monday. But they seem like they're very close, and I kind of want to give the Chargers the edge because they have more of a balanced roster.
I don't hate it. I mean, I'll tell you what, there's a world where if the Ravens at the point of the division, if they do it, like they could play each other in the first round of the playoffs. That could be the 3-6 game, something like that. By the way, on an aside, did you see that pick Russell Wilson threw last week?
Yeah, in the back of the end zone when he was trying to run around like in Seattle.
I was watching that live when he threw that ball. I got to tell you, that was one of those things. The second he threw that ball, I couldn't even see where the ball was going yet. I was like, there's no way this isn't intercepted. Like, it was one of those, like, if you watch football long enough, you could just almost sense as he was letting it go, you're like, oh no. Like, what are you doing? I was like, he's either got the guy so open in the end zone that it doesn't matter and he can float this thing, or like 8 guys are going to have a shot to pick this ball off. And it was the latter.
You see Arthur Smith in the sideline, like, what are you doing?
Like, come on, man. Throw the ball 50 yards out of bounds. I don't care. Like, whatever. It doesn't matter. Just chuck it. Yeah, he's Russell Wilson is still Russell Wilson.
What is Underdog? Underdog is the place to play if you're a sports fan looking to win money while watching sports. With over 5 million happy players and 2 billion won, Underdog makes it fun and easy to cash in on all your favorite athletes' performances. Just call your shot by picking higher or lower on 2 or more players' stats. Underdog is for everyone, so you can make a play with only $1 or go big and win up to 1,000 times your money. So turn every touchdown into a win with Underdog. Underdog is the best place to cash in on all your takes this football season. Which players are going to go off? Which players are going ice cold? Make your picks in just a few taps and turn your sports opinions into real money. Try End Zone Rush. This is a game you won't find anywhere else. You just pick whether or not a player will score a touchdown by swiping right for yes or left for no. It's as simple as that. Plus, your entry will be automatically boosted and you'll get a 51% profit boost when you play. Join over 5 million fans that are already playing on Underdog with their Pick'em games. You could win some money by making entries with your favorite players. Underdog is the best place to play Pick'em, so sign up now and deposit using promo code Sports Illustrated to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. I am not a gambler. I got some friends out there who they always come to me and they say, Connor, how do I do this? How do I bet this? What is a spread? What does all this stuff mean? This is what's interesting about Underdog. You don't have to know all that stuff. You don't have to be an old-fashioned mafioso style bookie. You just have to know higher, lower, yes, no, score, no score. They're making it a little bit easier for you to get into the game. Download the app today and use the code Sports Illustrated to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. That's Sports Illustrated for $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. Every player, every touchdown, just select higher or lower on Underdog. Must be 18 years of age or older, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, and Colorado for some games, 21 and older in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in the state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY at 467-369.
All right, you talked about pecking order. Let's go here for a minute. The Bills have a bye week. The Chiefs are in Carolina. I don't know if there's a whole lot to talk about either one of those two situations, but they played each other last week. It was a typical Chiefs-Bills game. It was nip and tuck. Winning the score pretty much the whole way. And then Allen makes a great play at the end, 26-yard touchdown run to win it. Chiefs remain a half game up for the top seed, but of course Buffalo now at the breaker. Did that game change anything for you? Or did you just watch it and go, hey, it was a great game, and I know what I know, and I knew it before that game, and I know it after. Did it move the needle for you for either team in either direction?
Not much, but I'll say this. I think is down to a two-team race here in the AFC. The Bills showed me something. I thought a little bit they were like, they're rolling, but who have they really beaten? I still can't forget about the Houston debacle. You got beat down by Baltimore, and then they beat the Chiefs. Okay, cool. Maybe it's a two-team race, Chiefs and the Bills, but like this whole thing where like they're better than the Chiefs because they beat the Chiefs. I'm like, I get it. They beat them in the regular season last 4 times, but look at the playoffs. And I hate to be that guy. Can you just show me in the playoffs? A little bit like Baltimore too when they're rolling. Can you just show me? Can you show me in the playoffs? But it doesn't hurt to have confidence to know that you beat that team. It doesn't hurt to know that you dropped 30 points on that defense too. But I also like the way Josh Allen carried himself in the post-game interview and on the TV broadcast. Like, we'll probably see that team again. I don't care. Like I think it was Tracy Wolfson saying, "Can you believe how you did that run? What an amazing run!" He's like, "Yeah, we'll probably play them again." So I like that mindset that you can't get too caught up on one game. But it's hard for me to give him more credit than that. Than like, can you show me in the playoffs and we'll talk then.
I went into that game saying I don't care who wins and by what score. It's not going to impact how I feel about January because we oftentimes see teams play in November and October, and then they get together in the playoffs, and it's just a totally different story. And I think in this game specifically, look at all the guys for both teams that missed this game, right? Keon Coleman wasn't there. Dalton Kincaid wasn't there. Matt Milano wasn't there. Charles Omena, who wasn't there. Isaiah Pacheco, Harrison Butker, Hollywood Brown. Now it seems like Hollywood Brown's going to be back toward the end of the season for the Chiefs. So there's all these guys who've been playing that game we're going to play. Spencer Brown, by the way, another one for the Bills. That is obviously, on both sides, going to drastically alter how the game looks. And I think, look, the Bills won the tiebreaker now. They got a shot at it. The Chiefs are still the favorite to be the 1 seed. I think they will be. And so I think there's a very good chance. I agree with you. Like, I think they're the 2 best teams in the conference. And I think they're probably going to see each other the 3rd weekend in January at Arrowhead. And it's going to be, all right, well, can the Bills beat them in this game? Because, to your point, this has kind of been the way this rivalry's gone. The Bills beat them in the regular season, everybody goes crazy, and then the Chiefs see them in the postseason and just beat them. Doesn't matter, home or away. I thought the biggest play in that game was Mahomes missing that throw deep to Worthy. Worthy's got to get his feet in. On the flip side, if it's a decent throw, it's a touchdown. He's wide open. I thought that changed the whole game because if he hits that, first of all, it's just, it's a butterfly effect, changes a lot of things, but it's also late in the game, had it played out similarly, the Chiefs are only down by 2 points. They're not trying to force it and get 7 because now they're down 9. And so look, I walked away from that basically feeling the same way I felt going in. I think they're really, really good teams. I think if they see each other in the playoffs, it's going to come down to the last 5 minutes. And it's going to come down to who can make a play. And in this game, Josh Allen made that play. Josh Allen stepped up, 4th down, got to have it. I think the whole world knew the ball was going to be in his hands, and he made it happen. Unbelievable play. And I think come January, you're probably going to have a similar situation where Mahomes or Allen have the ball in their hands with 2 or 3 minutes left, and it's like, hey, man, go win the game. And can they do it? And I think that's probably where we're headed. But looking at the way Baltimore's played, I know some people are a huge believer in Pittsburgh. I am not among them. I think Pittsburgh is I think they're like the Chargers. I think they can win a playoff game, but I think their offense kind of limits them. Baltimore is the opposite. I just don't think they can stop anybody. except for apparently Russell Wilson, but even that wasn't enough. And then, you look at the rest of the kind. Like Houston's kind of that wild card of a team. Like on their best day, they could beat anybody, but also like I wouldn't be shocked if they lost to Denver in a playoff game. Like they're very strange. Which, by the way, let's talk about the bottom of the playoff picture quick. So, look, I think we all can agree, barring collapse, in some order, Chiefs, Bills, Ravens, Steelers, Texans, Chargers, they're going to make the playoffs. That leaves us with Denver, who's currently the 7th seed. Indianapolis got a win over the Jets. Anthony Richardson played very well in that game. Maybe you want to go Miami here. Miami is now 1-2 in a row. I don't know. You're making a face like the face I would make as well. I don't believe in them either. Okay.
Yeah, no.
Okay, so we can put them to the side. Bengals 4-7. Are they cooked?
I'm gonna say yeah, but they have that offense. But yeah, I'm gonna say yeah.
I think they are too. Like, and I have been the guy all year on every radio spot I've done, sitting there saying, "Hey, listen, I wouldn't bury them yet. That Chargers game, like when McPherson missed both kicks at the end, I'm like, yeah, it's time to bury them. It's like, holy hell, man, hit one of them. And then the defense gives up 84 yards in like 8 seconds. You're like, all right, yeah, I'm good. I'm out. Like, all right. So, do you think Denver's the team, or do you think the Colts with Richardson are going to make a push here?
I'm going to say Denver's the team. The thing with Richardson, like, yeah, he had a good game, but, like, he showed me what he did in week 1, but then he goes a whole month where, like, missing half his throws. Like who really are you? And from that point, for the Colts, like, who cares who he is? You need to see it through. Just go with the punches here and see if he gets better or not. You got to find out who he is. But that's the thing that worries me. Like, if he's not great and he's not able to get the guys connected down the field with Josh Downs and, Michael Pittman Jr. and Mitchell, then, they're probably not going to have a good chance. It's not a good defense either. They're not really doing much. Obviously, I like Shane Steichen as a coach, but, Sean Payton has those Broncos, at least in their way rolling. They're not, like, obviously a contender, a team you're going to take seriously. But to kind of move on from that Russell Wilson, era, that debacle for 2 years, and to get to this point where you're, 6-5, like, they get some credit for that. And, and maybe I'll pump the brakes a little bit on Bo Nix being the offensive rookie of the year, but he's playing great. I think he's probably been the second best quarterback for the rookies, that is, in the NFL. And I know Drake May's making a push there. Caleb Williams is 2 up and down. Jaden Daniels dealing with the rib injury. But yeah, they've been impressive. And that's not an easy offensive scheme to play in. So shout out to Bo Nix for doing that. But part of me is kind of like, why do we care about these teams? I got to pick one, I guess. And it's going to be Denver, because they also have an underrated defense with Patrick Surtain, and Vance Joseph is doing a good job there. It's just the Richardson factor is just too much of a wild card for me to really go in and believe in him.
Yeah, look, I think I got to give Denver a lot of credit. Okay, I'll throw my hand up and say, hey, I am the guy who before the year was like flat out just making fun of Denver and be like, this is going to be ridiculous how bad this team is. I got to hand it to them. They've played great defense under Vance Joseph, and Nix has played well in the last 4 or 5 games. Like, when you watch him, you're never you're not like blown away like you are sometimes with Jaden Daniels. You're just like, oh my god, like he makes a play where you're just like, wow, this kid. Even Drake May, to be fair, like Drake May makes some plays sometimes. You're like, okay, wow, this kid, he's got something here. But Nix, to his credit, is very good within the system. Like he knows how to play. Now, I will say this. When you watch Bo Nix, there is one thing that is just stark, and I it's not a knock on him, but it's obvious. He is so unbelievably different when there's pressure and when there's not. Like, he will take a 20-yard sack under pressure. He just starts running. And you're like, okay, you can't do that, man. Like, that's a disaster. Without pressure, looks like Mahomes. Like, just stands back there and just is firing nonstop. Denver plays Indy in a few weeks in Denver. I think that's basically who's going to make the playoffs. Yeah. So Indianapolis has Detroit this week, which obviously is a very daunting game. After this game, though, here's the rest of the Colts' schedule. At New England, at Denver, that's the biggie. And that's off a bye, by the way. Indianapolis coming off the bye for that game. Last 3 games, home to the Titans, at the Giants, home to the Jags. Like,
wow.
Yeah. If they even they lose to the Lions, right? They're 5-7. As long as they beat New England 6-7. That's in New England, but if they beat them 6-7. That Broncos game's the game. because if they win that game, they should win out. And they'd be 10-7 with a breaker on Denver. Denver, other than the Colts game, would have to win out to beat them. And I don't think that's going to happen. If you look at the Broncos schedule, for those wondering, it's not brutal, but it's not easy either. They are at the Raiders and they have the Browns at home the next 2 weeks. They could get fat. Then they have that Colts game at home. Then their last 3 games are not easy. At the Chargers, at Cincinnati, home to Kansas City. Maybe they get lucky and the Chiefs don't need that game. And the Chiefs just, whatever, like they're playing nobody. You don't have to worry about them being undefeated anymore. So like maybe there's a world where the Chiefs are 15-1 and they've clinched the 1 seed and it doesn't matter. And so maybe you get lucky. But that game with Denver and Indianapolis is probably the game. And lastly, for those wondering, the Bengals slate, you still have hope for them. They're 4-7 on a bye this week. Their schedule: Steelers at home. Then they got 3 games they ought to win. Although we've said this with Cincinnati before. But at the Cowboys, at the Titans, home to the Browns. Then they're home to Denver, at Pittsburgh. So Denver plays both the Colts and the Bengals. The Bengals play, home to Denver. Indianapolis is in Denver. Those couple games are going to probably determine it. But I think for Cincinnati, they're going to have to win out. Like if they're going to make the playoffs, probably have to win out. Indianapolis, I think, going to lose to Detroit and then probably has to win out, but could because their schedule's a joke outside of Denver. Denver's probably got to beat Indianapolis. That's probably the game. If they win that game, they probably are home free. So it'll be interesting. It'll be very interesting to see how it shakes out. All right, let's switch gears. Let's go to the NFC side of things. Like as we mentioned, not great games this week, but Packers and Niners getting together in Lambeau, and I can attest to someone 3 hours south of Lambeau right now. It is snowing. It is unpleasant. By the way, what is it in LA? About 80?
Close, like 70, 72, yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
It's brutal. It's brutal. If the Niners lose this game, are they done?
It's tough because of the NFC West factor. Like, it's weird to say, but they might be done as a wild card hopeful. Like,
right. That's almost harder.
Yeah, like it's hard to do because Commanders are the 7th seed. They're 7-3. So if you fall down 5-6, but you could still be maybe a game, or I guess maybe 2 games behind in the NFC West. But there's still a path there, and yeah, maybe the Cardinals are good, but like they're not much better than the 49ers. I get they beat the 49ers, but the one thing I'll say about them to give them hope here for this, tough game in Green Bay, like I know the Packers are also 7-3 and they're doing well, but they feel like they're a little bit, I guess underachieving. I shouldn't say disappointing, but it's similar to Anthony Richardson, but not to that degree. It's just Jordan Love is a little up and down. You don't know which one you're going to get. They probably should have lost last week. It wasn't for that blocked field goal on Cairo Santos. Yeah, too many interceptions, and I haven't seen this offense clicking in a while. I know he's had some injuries too, and then, like it's weird, but the 49ers defense, we haven't been talking about them that much. They're actually not a bad defense. They're doing pretty well in a lot of categories. It's just they're 5-5, and people are worried about the injuries of Christian McCaffrey and Brandon Ayuk, and they're losing games, and so that's more of the spotlight there. But and then Brock Purdy played pretty well in Tampa Bay, and then you go and do that game against the Seattle Seahawks. So again, they're both up and down teams, but I'm not ready. I actually picked the 49ers in this game, so I'm not ready to say that the world is over if they lose this game here. I think they could beat the Packers, but they have that luxury of being in the NFC West, kind of like those Atlanta Falcons who keep losing games, but they have the NFC South.
Yes, they do. The Niners' schedule the rest of the way is hard. Like, really hard. Their schedule is obviously at Lambeau this weekend. Then they're at Buffalo on a Sunday night. Buffalo coming off the bye. Home to the Bears, okay. Home to the Rams on a Thursday night. At Miami. Home on a Monday night to the Lions. And then at Arizona week 18. Which, by the way, that might be the game that gets flexed into Sunday Night Football.
Yeah.
And that might be the game that everybody in the NFL, all these NFC teams are watching, and they're like, hey, listen, it'd be great if Arizona wins this game because nobody wants the Niners to get in the playoffs. I got to tell you, man, I think they got to win this game. Like, they lose to Green Bay. Are they beating Buffalo and Buffalo? I mean, they could. I'm not saying they couldn't beat them, but, like, big ask. And then you've got, to end the season, the Rams at Miami, Detroit at Arizona, like, you could really be looking at like 8-9, 9-8. I don't know. And to your point, they will not be a wild card team if they do that.
Yeah.
They will have to win the division. And if you look at Arizona's schedule, and I feel like I've just been reading schedules here today, but it's that time of year. Arizona's schedule, Seattle 2 of the next 3 weeks, Minnesota in the middle of that on the road, not easy. Then they have New England and Carolina. And then it's at the Rams and the Niners. So, like, it's not easy, but, like, there's 2 games in there. You're like, yeah, they should just click those games off. It's interesting to see, like, we're going to get a big shakeup in the West here in the next couple of weeks because, as I mentioned, look, you've got Seattle and Arizona 2 of the next 3 weeks. Seattle had, they got a huge win last weekend in San Francisco, so they stay alive. Like, you're starting to have a lot of these inter-division games. The Rams, they got Philly on Sunday night, which we're going to get to here in a second. That's a big game. All 4 of these teams have a shot to win the division. Like, it's not like you'll look at it and go, oh, one of these teams is really fraudulent. Like, I kind of thought Seattle was going that way.
Yeah.
And then got to give it to them, like, big win against the Niners. Do you think that anybody other than the Niners in the NFC West could win a playoff game?
Playoff game. That's actually a good question. I'll say yeah. I think the Rams could. I think the Rams have that dangerous factor, and we're going to talk about them in a bit. But they're just a little too inconsistent. But it's kind of like the 49ers, right? If they get in, do you want to see Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford,
right,
Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, and the rest of the guys there? So they could definitely be dangerous. Like sometimes there's a team there that maybe disappoints in the regular season, and then they get hot at the end, and then they win a game. They're in division round, and there's always one team that you thought they were a contender, but they're more division round. They'll win a game and make some noise there. So I think the 49ers and the Rams have that factor. The Cardinals are interesting because they've been the best team in that division so far. It's kind of like the Chargers, right? Like, do you have enough talent? Can you compete? Can you win a playoff game? And you're facing one of these wild card teams like the Vikings or the Packers. They already played the Packers, right? So they lost to that team. So if they find a way to get Marvin Harrison Jr. more involved, they're a little more consistent with the offense there. I could totally see it too. And then the Geno Smith factor. I'm going down all these teams here. I could make a case. It's just which Geno are you going to get? The hot one that's throwing dimes with DK Metcalf. And by the way, Jackson Smith and Jigba has been balling out. So
been great.
He's been great. So he has him now. But then he had the Geno Smith who's throwing 11 interceptions in the NFL and is tied for the league high. So, but that was a game-winning drive that he had. That was impressive with the backup center because Connor Williams retired in the middle of the week. So got to give him credit for that. So yeah, they're all very talented and good wide receivers, well coached. So I could definitely make a case. I wouldn't be surprised. Like, I think the NFC, for a while, I felt like they're going to be the better conference, but obviously the Chiefs and the Bills reside in the AFC. But I could definitely see a lot of the Lions are the top team, but I could see a lot of chaos maybe occur in the playoffs in the NFC because they're pretty close. I feel like.
I agree with you. I agree. I don't know that I feel Seattle could win a playoff game, although maybe they could if they got the right matchup. Any of those other teams could. I think any of them could. By the way, one thing about the Cardinals nobody's talking about, everybody's like going crazy about Kyler. They've not given up a touchdown in 3 of the last 4 games.
Yeah.
Like, can anyone name 3 guys on that defense? I got to hand it to him, man. It's a masterclass by Gannon. Again, sometimes you got to admit in life you're wrong. When they hired him, I was like, why are they hiring this guy? Kudos to him, man. Kudos to him. Sometimes you got to admit when hey, you know what, I misjudged them. And they're not, like, they don't have a good pass rush. They don't have big names. Yeah. Like, they've got really good safeties, Buda Baker, Jalen Thompson. But, man, like, they're getting it done. They're getting it done. I mean, give them credit. So, let's talk Rams-Eagles. Look, the Eagles are winning the division right now in the NFC East. They're up a game and a half on Washington. They won last Thursday night. Saquon Barkley, probably the favorite right now for offensive player of the year. He has an outside shot at 2,000 yards rushing, depending on how things shake. They play the Rams. The Rams have been weird. They lost to the Dolphins in a hideous game. Then they rebound and they beat New England. And Stafford throws 4 touchdowns and Nacua and Kupp combined for 3 of them. Do you like the Rams pulling a minor upset here? Or you think Philly gets to 9-2 and is starting to kind of get on track and become that clear contender to Detroit in the NFC?
Yeah, I really tried to convince myself to go with the Rams here, but I couldn't because you laid out some of their sluggish games this year. I can't get over the Miami game. How do you not score a touchdown at home in a primetime game against the Dolphins? Come on. So, and then you go to New England. If you would have blown them out, maybe I would. Okay, you got to fix. You got to figure it. You got to fix, and you figured it out. But no, it was still a close game at the end there. So, uh, you know, and the thing too why I considered them is just I don't know if I fully buy into the Eagles. Like, yeah, Vic Fangio is great. Like, go ahead and confuse a rookie quarterback, but you got to deal with Matthew Stafford. That's not going to be easy there. Matthew Stafford also, put a work there on Brian Flores. Brian Flores and Vic Fangio know how to fluster these younger quarterbacks. They're great at that. But when it's Matthew Stafford, I want to give him more of a chance there. So, and also, how can Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean do well with Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, two of the toughest guys to defend? So matchups here, I like this type of game. Just thinking about what could happen here. It's just they're too inconsistent. The Rams, you can't also go 1 week where you barely beat the Raiders, one of the worst teams in its 20 to 15 game. Yeah, you beat the Vikings. That was great. You probably need a kind of a Viking game where you come out, slinging the football, getting Puka Nacua going to have a chance to beat the Eagles. But the Eagles have a good defense. The Saquon Barkley factor, by the way, is such a game changer for them. I think that's why you've moved on a little bit from the 10-1 collapse there. But I just can't convince myself with the Rams here because who really are you? Are you just 5-5 team and we need to accept it? Or are you still the team they got hot last year and you still have some Super Bowl pedigree from that 2021 season?
Yeah, they were 1-4 and they were all beat up. I guess this team's done. And then since then they've been 4-1 with that weird game against the Dolphins. How the hell did they lose that game? What the hell was that? Hard team to figure, but I'm with you. I like Philly, but I think it's a coin flip of a game. I really do. I don't think it's, like Philadelphia too. You do wonder, like they've had some weird games this year. Where you look at them and go, yeah, you're 8-2, but like barely beat New Orleans, barely beat Cleveland. Like some of these games are just hideous. So and Sirianni's always the wild card. Like Sirianni can just cost them at any given time. All right, let's close. We're taking 5 minutes to just absolutely bury the Jets. What the hell is going on in Florham Park? They fired Joe Douglas, whose contract was going to expire at the end of the year anyway. For reasons I don't understand, like what the hell that does. Like, does that somehow make them better over the next 6 weeks? Like, Woody Johnson, maybe the worst owner in football. Like, David Tepper's got an argument, but like Woody Johnson's got a strong argument as well. How surprised were you that they fired Douglas, and where do you think this thing's headed?
I'm not surprised, but like definitely headed for a rebuild. But like, make up your mind, Woody Johnson. What the hell do you want to do? You're seeing reports that he wanted to bench, Aaron Rodgers in the fourth game of the season. Yeah, because Tyrod Taylor is going to do so much better. Then you go trade for Devontae Adams. So okay, you're back in now with the season. Go trade for Devontae Adams. You fire Robert Saleh. It's just a lot of impulsive thinking, and then people trying to talk to you, hey, maybe that's not the right move, and you don't care, and you're still making these moves here. And that, you're right, Matt. Joe Douglas is about to get his contract expired. Just go ahead and roll out the season. So, are you now trying to tank because you have Devontae Adams, who we just traded for? So, I don't get who they really are there, who they want to be. So, all signs are pointing to probably cutting Aaron Rodgers, and that's kind of. I shouldn't feel bad for Aaron Rodgers. He's making a lot of money, and he kind of, likes to bring this upon himself. But, you kind of feel bad that he's going to go out this way. Like, Aaron Rodgers, the mighty 4-time MVP, where he's looking very old and can't move out there. So, and then now you're going to be cast aside. And, Matt, I really tried my hardest to find a home for Aaron Rodgers if he wants to play next year. I wrote a story, and it's kind of more of a story like, he should really retire, but what the hell, I'll play along and maybe try to find a team for him. And I really couldn't. I put a category where I said maybe there's a chance, and then one they'll think about it and quickly say hell no. So that's the thing we've come to with Aaron Rodgers here. So that's what Woody Johnson created. You wanted to go all in for a middle-aged quarterback. You probably should have known from your past mistake with Brett Favre. It didn't work out, and you're just not the franchise where people have their Tom Brady moment, their Peyton Manning moment. You're not Denver. You're not Tampa Bay. So. Yeah, I could find a bunch of things to kind of, bury this team here. Connor Orr's done a good job. Albert Breer's done a good job. You've done a good job. So we're all tired about the New York Jets, and I keep writing, get out of my life. You're 3-8. I don't want to talk about you, but we still talk about them. So might as well bury them while we're doing it, right?
They're like the girlfriend that calls you up like inebriated at 1 a.m. in college. And it's like, hey, you're like, all right, listen, go to bed. You text her roommate, make sure she gets to bed okay. Like, I feel like the Jets are like drunk at 1 a.m. at this point. Like, I feel like
all the time.
Yes, just hammered. Like at this point, like maybe borderline like intervention time with the Jets. Like, it's like, hey guys, you suck. It's no point in firing the GM with 6 games left. Like, just ride it out. By the way, I'm sure Phil Savage, who was named interim GM, sure he was thrilled to death about that appointment. Like, awesome. Get to be a link to this forever. Here's my thing with this. If you're a GM candidate, you got 3 strikes working against you right off the bat. Woody Johnson is the owner of the team. Aaron Rodgers, people think like, oh, they can just get rid of him next year and it's cool. You know that he has a dead cap hit because of a void year of $63 million in 2026. So you have a huge chunk of your cap in 2026 just tied up, gone. Nothing you can do about it because the Jets pushed it forward so it could go all in the next 2 years. Then also, if I'm the GM candidate that they're interested in, or one of them, I'm sitting there saying to myself, okay, Woody Johnson took this job out of Joe Douglas's hands by almost all reporting, did a shit job, and then immediately, I don't know if I can swear on this podcast, we'll figure it out. And then immediately turns around and fires the guy, a lot of which was not even his fault. And I'm sitting there going, okay, so that all happened. And on top of that, you fired this guy when his contract was going to expire in 6 games anyway. Were you just trying to show him up? Were you just trying to make him look bad on the way out the door? You're trying to kick him a little bit? Like, what are you doing? What is your problem? Like, I'm telling you right now, if I'm in an interview, I'm asking him all those questions explicitly. And if that means he's not going to hire me, that's fine. I probably dodged the bullet anyway. The other question you got to ask yourself, and you did a great job writing that piece. I read it. Look, if you're the Jets moving forward, whoever the new GM is, new coach, all that stuff, you probably don't want Aaron Rodgers. He's not been good this year. He is, listen, however you feel about the guy personally, whatever, doesn't matter. But like the point is, from a football perspective, he's a sideshow. There's a lot of baggage that comes with him. He's going to be 42 next year. If I'm the new coach or the new GM, I don't want him in the building because I feel like I'm wasting one of my years. Like I want to go young. I want to go differently. If they move off of him, where's he going? Like, you look around the league and you wrote about it as we both mentioned here, Gil, but like Tennessee, like I'd rather retire.
Yeah.
Well, like the Raiders.
Ugh.
Oh my God! But by the way, that would be hilarious. And Devontae Adams is with the Jets. And
they want to come back.
The Raiders. That'd be amazing.
We could use you here.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, where do you go? The Giants. I mean, let's put it this way. I don't see any situation that he could go to where you'd be like, that's a good situation for both sides. I've heard people say, well, what about Minnesota? What about Minnesota? They got McCarthy. They're not going to want to play him. They got McCarthy. And at this point, Darnold's played well enough. Just bring him back, like, as a backup. Like, you're not going to bring in Aaron Rodgers to stunt McCarthy's growth. That's insane. The Bears have Williams. They're not going to sit Williams down to play Rodgers. So, you start looking around the league and you're like, okay, Cleveland? Like, is Cleveland going to sit there and say, hey, we'll bring him in for pennies on the dollar because we don't want Deshaun Watson anywhere near the building? I mean, could you imagine Aaron Rodgers in Cleveland? What that would be? So I'm with you, man. I don't know that there's a spot that you look at and go, makes a lot of sense. Maybe you're better off if you're him, if you want to play, and if you get released, if you just say, look, I'm just going to wait until some guy on a contending team gets hurt, and then I can go be that team's savior, and they'll probably pay me out the nose because they need me. It's a very, what appears to be, an unceremonious ending for what was once a great career.
Yeah, and that's a problem too, Matt. Does he want to be the call me in case emergency guy? Can I wait until October, and what do you do until November? Right. And do you want to be Joe Flacco and win, those 5 games and be comeback player of the year? I don't think he wants to do that. He probably wants his own roster. The Tennessee one is always funny to me when people bring it up, and the way I shot it down was like, they just fired a guy in Mike Vrabel who was too demanding and wanted too many things and wanted to call the shots. Yeah, I think Aaron Rodgers is such an easy guy to work with. Yeah, right. And maybe you should listen to Mike Vrabel because you're, 2 and something right now. So, yeah, all these teams, I shot them down. You know, I said maybe. Even a team like New Orleans, like they're finally going to rebuild. Why would they bring Aaron Rodgers? So the Colts, yeah, I get it. They brought Phillip Rivers, they got Carson Wentz, they got Matt Ryan. They tried it, but they at least have an option now with Anthony Richardson to get younger. And I think Shane Steichen found out very quickly that the Joe Flacco heat wave was only for 5 games, and you don't want to go back to Aaron Rodgers. So all these teams, we could go down the list here. And honestly, I'm surprised because even the reaction I got on social media were like, because people think that I was trying to make a case for him to keep playing. People don't like to read sometimes. Sorry, I'm going to be a little mean there. But the whole point was like he should really, really retire, but just in case. And everybody kept saying he needs to retire. So at least we agree with that.
Yes. He needs to retire, and the Jets need to be contracted. All right, what's happening, man? As we wrap up here, what's going on in your life? We're getting ready for Week 12.
Yeah, not too much. Obviously getting ready for the holidays. We do have like a family party this weekend, but yeah, it's one of those things. Okay, got to meet some extended family, but a lot of family I've never met. So that should be interesting. But yeah, a big party here, and it could be good or bad, or maybe just have a couple of beers and just try to have fun.
Yeah, just don't be that guy. I just just hang
don't
out.
Don't be the 1 a.m. person that's calling people.
Yes. I always I don't care. I'll embarrass her because she's my wife, and at this point, she would laugh. When we were first dating, we must have been dating for 2 months. We were dating for 2 months, and she invited me to her cousin's wedding. And her cousin is a very nice guy. Her cousin's also a monster because he had his wedding on New Year's Eve at 7:00 at night.
Oh, okay.
Good old Springfield, Illinois. Right? Now, mind you, my wife and I at that point, we're the same age. We were 27. Different stage for our lives. We didn't have any kids, obviously. It was a quieter time. So we go to this wedding, and I am on my absolute best behavior because it's like the second time I've ever met her parents. It's like all our extended families there, right? Like I'm like dressed to the nines. I'm by no means going to go overboard with the drinking. Like I am very much aware of the situation. My wife, however, did not feel the need to be very aware of the situation because what the hell? It's her family. She got toasted. And I remember we're driving back and we had rented this van, and she was laying in the hatchback of the van on the way back to the hotel as her parents are driving us back, all back to the hotel. And she's like, let's go out to the Celtic bar. I'm like, okay, you can't even sit up. Maybe you're done tonight. Like, no, it's fine. Get back to the hotel room. And she's like, I'm ready to go out if you're ready. I'm like, okay. And she got up off the bed. She's like, I don't feel good. I'm like, yeah, I bet you don't feel good. It was a rough night for her. We did not make it to the Celtic bar.
Yeah, I figured.
And my point is, so the next morning we come down for breakfast. We're at the hotel, and her mom is very into health and everything, and I was not at the time, and still not that much, but certainly not as much as her mother. And I came downstairs and I'm getting breakfast, and my wife, the poor girl, is not eating anything. She's drinking water and barely alive. And I came down with 2 bowls of cereal and a buffet spread. And I'll never forget. Her mother looked at me. She's like, "Are you gonna?" She's like, "Do you eat like that all the time?" I was like, "Well, normally I'd have 1 bowl of cereal, and this why?" She's like, "Okay," and she just kind of tried to pass by it. And I thought about it. I was like, you know what? She was allowed, my wife was allowed to be that person that night because she was with her family. It didn't matter. She wasn't meeting anybody on my side. So for you this weekend, you just can't be what my wife was that night. You have to just be a person and let it all roll.
You have me worried because you tried your hardest not to be the drunk guy, but then you go and get food and you're still getting judged. Hey, you're not, come on, man. So maybe I shouldn't eat that much and then not drink either. So I got to be very careful here.
I figured, you know what, if this works out, my then future mother-in-law is going to have to just kind of accept the fact that I'm going to have a bowl of Cocoa Puffs. So I don't really care. It's just what it's going to be.
Yeah, as an adult, yeah.
Yes. Oh yeah, I ate like a child until I was like 30 something. But anyway, yeah. So, and she's accepted it, and it's good. It's good. But yeah, I'll never forget that night sitting there thinking like, you were having a rough evening, and I'm sitting here drinking like water between every other drink I have because I'm like, I can't be a mess.
Yeah.
Don't be that guy. So good luck to you not being that guy.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'll try my best.
Yeah. All right. Hey, listen, everybody out there, enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the games. I would assume, I think, as far as the schedule goes, we'll talk to you before Thanksgiving. But listen, have a great holiday coming up. Enjoy it. Spend time with family and friends. And then look, it's it's 3 games of football on Thanksgiving. It's Black Friday football. A little Raiders Chiefs at Arrowhead. Gil and I will have it all covered for you on the website as Connor and Albert loosen the belt up a little bit and get after a little maternity pants action. So hey, listen, go enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the rest of your week. For Gilberto Manzano, I am at Verderame. Thanks a lot for listening, and we'll be talking to you again real soon. Take care.